Hi, welcome to this episode of An Audit Minion Explores. I spent my 2 days off watching the Titanic movie from 1997 for the first time ever, all the way through. And now I'm sad. It was a rough weekend. The movie Titanic by James Cameron in 1997, as one would expect, is about the maiden and final voyage of the RMS Titanic, the ill-fated ship that sunk in April of 1912. At the time, it was this big, impressive ship. It was large, it was fast, it was the unsinkable ship. Nothing could bring it down. Of course, those of us who know our history know that's not exactly how the story went. Yeah, when I was younger, I saw little bits and pieces. I think it was on TV, and so I remember seeing some of the scenes, like later on scenes in the movie, but I never sat down and watched the whole thing all the way through. And I don't think I really appreciated it for what it was. I was just like, oh, it's a movie about the Titanic and there's love triangles and who really cares? But having read about the production of the movie and having read about James Cameron's appreciation for maintaining the historical accuracy of the Titanic and basing dialogue and actions and everything off of eyewitness accounts. Even the extras are based on like real people. The part where it hits the iceberg is exactly 37 seconds long because that's how long the crash was in real life. The movie in total is about 3.5 hours, 3 hours, 20 minutes. Excluding all of the present day scenes, equals out to about 2 hours and 40 minutes, which is the exact amount of time it took the Titanic to sink in real time. They went way over budget trying to make this reproduction, this set of the Titanic as historically accurate as possible. Like, he went to the original carpet manufacturers and got the original carpet made. That's dedication. Knowing that James Cameron went into it with a lot of respect for the historical accuracy, but also for the stories of the passengers who survived and the ones who perished, really, I think, made me more interested. And I was like, now I think I'm ready to watch and appreciate the movie. So the story set on the Titanic follows, it's kind of a Romeo and Juliet-esque love story between these two people who are in completely different classes and probably shouldn't even have been able to meet each other on the boat. But anyway, one is Jack Dawson. He's an American. He's kind of a drifter. And on the flip side, we have Rose DeWitt Bukater. Her father was a socialite, and he has passed away. In order to kind of protect the family assets, her mother has promised her in marriage to this very wealthy jerk. Somehow the two of them, Rose and Jack, end up meeting, and they fall in love. And it's kind of this forbidden romance of, she's a higher class, in a completely different world, and he's, in steerage and like poor, dirt poor. Because you have these characters who are in two different social classes on the ship, you get to see a nice juxtaposition between how the upper classes lived on the ship and how the steerage passengers were on the ship. And so you get that nice juxtaposition, and then you get these characters kind of pulled into each other's worlds. Jack is invited into the socialite world for a little bit, and then Rose is invited into the steerage world for a little bit, and you see them experiencing each other's culture, basically. And then you also, in the same way, you get to see how everything went down, like especially during the crash and the evacuation of the ship, how the two different classes were handled differently there. They're evacuating all the first class passengers first, and they don't want to crowd everyone in the boats. First of all, they don't have enough lifeboats to begin with. Yes, there could have been a lot more people squished in the boats, and they could have saved more people, but they still, even with that, still didn't have the boat capacity for like over half of the passengers on this ship. So that's how certain they were that the boat was never going to sink. And then it sank, which is a problem. But you see that difference. They're like, let's keep all the socialites comfortable. Nobody's really taking it seriously. They tried so hard not to panic everyone that nobody really understood the gravity of the situation. Like, they're heading out to the boat, they're putting on their life vests, and the one lady says, go make me some tea. I'll want some tea when I go back to my room. You're not going back to your room. The boat is sinking. You're not going back to your room. Then meanwhile, you've got all of the steerage passengers who are basically in a cage. You know, these people wake up in their cabins and there's water on the floor and they're like, they've got these gates closed on them and they're not letting them out. And I was like, don't panic. Just, you know, bring the women and children forward first and we're going to get you out as soon as everybody else is out. And they're like, but the boat is sinking. There's water in here. Kind of as the sinking progresses, you see the calm everything, you know, all the calm people not taking it seriously kind of devolve into mass chaos. Everyone's running and screaming and things are going down really fast. And so you've got people who are kind of uncomfortably similar to 9/11 jumping out of the ship at this great height into the water, hoping to survive. And some of them do, unlike 9/11, they hit the water and they're like, yeah, I'm free. And then the ship just comes over and squashes them all anyway. And it's like, ugh. So you've got this just death everywhere from freak accidents, like the ship's breaking in half. It's like all this shock value, but I think that it's also historically accurate, which is really sad to think about. Like, this is probably how this went down, and we don't think about that a lot. Sitting here in the 21st century, reading about it on Google, you know, we don't think about all those things that James Cameron and his team obviously did think about in making this movie. And I think that adds to the tragedy, and what makes it so emotionally jarring for us is to see that and be like, that's shock value, but also kind of understand, like, that's probably how it went down. The added tragedy, kind of the insult to the injury, was you've got all of these people in the water who freeze to death because the water is so cold and it's April and there's ice everywhere, and so they're waiting to be rescued. And I think they said there are 20 lifeboats and only one came back to rescue people out of the water. Like 1,500 people died. A bunch of people weren't able to get off the ship and drowned in the ship. A bunch of people made it off the ship and just froze to death in the water. The most chilling lines to me, honestly, is when they're all in the water and Rose and Jack are in the water. It goes from people are screaming, yelling, chaos, thrashing around the water to everyone's still. And she just says, it's quiet, it's getting quiet, Jack. Like, she just isn't aware that these people are dying around her. And he's kind of trying to, you know, assure her that everything's going to be okay. And then the one boat that goes back, just, you know, sifting through the bodies of these deceased passengers. And that whole sequence is just so hard to watch. I think James Cameron and his team did a really good job of capturing the tragedy of it. They brought everyone to life in the first half of the movie. They did a really good job of, like, getting us emotionally involved, and then killed everybody off. Even before Celine Dion's famous song starts playing, you know, we're already just torn up and emotionally impacted by the loss of life. The parts that irritate me, though, I'm going to be honest, I was very irritated. Rose, especially during the evacuation, is not... She has a spot on a boat that she turns down. Fine. Okay. She goes to find Jack. That's great. Whatever. Her fiance gets her on the boat, says, oh, I have an arrangement with some guy over there, so Jack and I can get on another boat, which is, of course, a lie. He's not going to take Jack with him. My thought on that is, if she'd believed him for a second, she would have been like, okay, how about the three of us get on that boat and stick together? But no, whatever. And then they put her on a boat. They convince her to get on a boat. And she's like halfway down. They're lowering the boat. And then she's like, heck no. And she jumps back onto the sinking ship. Jack and her fiance were just like, what are you doing? I guess you could say love makes you crazy. But that crazy? I have the comfort of hindsight 2020, sitting here in 2022, watching it, thinking to myself, if you didn't want to leave, someone else could have been on that boat. I'm okay. And they spend the next, like, good half an hour running all over the ship while it's sinking. There's no reason for that, like, half an hour of the movie where they're just running around in the lower decks with the water rushing in. I think they just did that for the dramatic effect. There's no reason for it. it didn't make any sense. That was the one unbelievable moment in the entire movie for me. It was just kind of like took me out of it, like, hold on, what are you doing? I don't know. Am I highly recommending this movie because I think it's an amazing piece of art? Yes, I am. You know, I would just say enter with caution. There is a lot of, violence, there's language, there's the classic paint me like one of your French girls scene, but I did really, and if you're into any sort of history or have any interest whatsoever in the RMS Titanic and the tragedy of the RMS Titanic, then definitely watch the movie just for the historical accuracy, if nothing else. But also, if you like tragic romances like this, I'm not going to tell you how it ends. Everybody probably already knows how it ends because it's such a well-known movie. But for those of you who don't know about it, then I'm not going to spoil it for you. You should just go watch it and cry with the rest of us. We can all chat about how sad it made us in the comments. All right, I better get back to work now. It was a long video there, but thank you for joining me on this journey as I experienced the RMS Titanic movie for the first time. Okay, bye.